meeting of October 31st, 2018. And I want to thank all of our community members who are present today. We appreciate your attendance and ask that you silence your cell phones and also refrain from engaging in any conduct that interferes with the ability of the board to conduct its business. And thanks so much for your consideration. The first item on the agenda is the resuscitation of the vision statement. The MMSD vision statement is that every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate from high school, college, career, and community ready. Next on our agenda is the board president's announcements and reports. And we have two announcements regarding recognition. And the first is that the recognition of Family Engagement Month and a proclamation for that. National Parent Involvement Day, falling on November 15, 2018, is an opportunity to highlight and honor the essential contributions that parents and guardians provide at school and home to support student success. The Board of Education would like to read a proclamation recognizing this important month. Whereas research indicates a strong correlation between student achievement and family engagement. Whereas National Parental Involvement Day is observed in Wisconsin on the third Thursday in November to celebrate the recruitment, engagement, and recognition of the contributions of dedicated school volunteers and families taking an active role in their child's education. Now, therefore, the Madison School District Board of Education recognizes all the ways parents, guardians, and other family members are involved in their child's education. Be it resolved, this statement be permanently imprinted in the Board of Education minutes for the meeting of October 31st, 2018. Today, we'd also like to individually recognize Sharon Billings with the All Parents on Deck organization for her tireless efforts to promote family involvement, including our involved parents during National Parent Involvement Day and helping organize the Making Music Together, which will occur next month. Thank you very much, Sharon. Next on the agenda is normally the superintendent's announcements and reports, but this month, no report. So with that, our next agenda item is a report on the items that proceeded through the instruction work group, which was held on October 1st, 2018. Dean?
We had some information about our early childhood learning plan with and introduced to our new director, I believe it is, Colleen from Racine, who is started 6 months ago and gave a pretty energetic and good plan, including potential for expansion to full day, which is on the table. Then we also had Marcy was there from CNI to support. Monday we'll be meeting around pathways and our new STEM program that just kicked off. So that's coming up in 4 days.
Great, thank you, Dean. Kate will report on the items that proceeded through the operations work group in October.
So we had two main items that went through the operations work group this month. The first was an update on the school safety planning that the teams have been working on for the last maybe 3 to 6 months, I guess. They're working against kind of three big areas. Infrastructure is probably the most topical, and we have an action item coming up in December on that topic. Maybe just in public want to commend the administration for securing some grants to support some of that infrastructure investment, and maybe an acknowledgement that while we're making progress on some of it, we also are working to move more quickly. So that was on safety. The second is the action item for today, which is the finalization of the 2018-19 budget. All around, a very positive story for our budget. The major update we went through during the work group was reduction in the increase in the tax levy based on strong Madison growth. So very grateful for the city's growth and how it's supporting the school budget there. The budget incorporates a 4.13% compensation increase for teachers and staff, and absorbs all of our healthcare costs, which is, I think, another piece to be proud of. And maybe the last piece that we went through in the operations work group was 2 additions to the budget, 2 amendments that we made. One that originally came from the MTI work group and that TJ has re-raised with, I think, unanimous support around the long-term sub pay increase. And then the second is a commitment to hire a recruiter that will focus on diversity hiring for the school district to meaningfully change, hopefully, our ability to attract and retain staff of color. So those are the 2 maybe last-minute updates, and that is what we will be voting on momentarily. So.
Great. Thank you, Kate. Next agenda item are the action items that proceeded through the instruction work group. And the one action item on that is the approval of the evaluation and review cycles. So Jen, did you want to give a...
Yeah, I'll provide a brief update. This document would replace a guidance document that the board approved several years ago, I think in December. Based on our discussion at the last instruction work group meeting, we incorporated your feedback, and there are a few key changes related to review cycles. One, we took your suggestion of requiring an initial 3-year evaluation for major plans, and then from there going into a 5-year cycle of major plan review. We also took your feedback on this, and this may be the biggest change in there, is beefing up the annual monitoring reports for each of the district's major plans, so that we can be more nimble and make kind of midstream adjustments as a school district, which leads to the third change. Those 5 major evaluations, in the past 3 were done externally, 2 internally. Our recommendation is that we do all external evaluations in the future so that our research team can focus on the more robust annual monitoring reports. So that's my summary. We hope that you'll vote to approve it, knowing that it is indeed a guidance document, and we can always make adjustments to those timelines based on the board's direction. I do think TJ might have a suggestion.
Kind of a 4th change that I think is significant that Jen kind of alluded to but didn't highlight.
Yeah.
And it came very, very last minute following a conversation. And so I wanted to talk to the rest of the board about what it is and why I requested it. And I don't have the exact language, Matt drafted the language, but in the paragraph that follows the grid of the review cycles, there is language that's been inserted that the board may alter this depending upon circumstances or something along those lines. And my thinking about it is that I reflected long and hard on this, and I thought that, you know, there are times when a 3-year cycle is the right thing to do, and there's times that the 5-year cycle is the right thing to do. And there might be times when a 4-year cycle or a 6-year cycle might be the way to do. And I think that in light of Mary's request that we beef up the annual monitoring reports, that I think that the board, as we get the monitoring reports and we look at the monitoring reports, having before us the thought that, you know, do we want to come to the evaluation sooner, or do we want to push it back, and giving us, acknowledging that that flexibility exists and inviting us to use that flexibility was my thinking behind that change. I'll tell you that if we'd gone to a straight 3-year, I would have been opposed to it. I think that as it is now with the flexibility, I think it's where we should be. So
That's great.
That was my thinking.
And I agree with that. Bo and I discussed it as well.
Yeah. Excellent. Any other discussion on this item? Okay, well, Jen, I want to thank you and the staff and Andrew for the work on this. I think that how we evaluate our our programs and what we're doing, how often, how thoroughly, and how they help us focus for the future on our next steps, and also how we can make corrections to constantly improve is really, really important. And so I applaud the work that this document takes us, this program takes us closer to really having those tools.
All right, thank you.
Okay, well, with that, I will move that the Board of Education approve the use of the revised continuous improvement evaluation cycles and scaling what works in MMSD guidance document dated October 2018 as set forth in the documents prepared for the Board of Education regular meeting dated October 29th, 2018.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Okay, the next item on our agenda, as Kate mentioned, is the action item around approval of the budget. And so I will make, there's two motions that are part of approving the budget. I will move that the Board of Education certify the 2018-19 all funds tax levy in conjunction with the 2018-19 budget in the total tax levy amount of $308,009,893, which consists of the specific subcomponents listed below. General Fund 10, $275,294,815. Debt Service Fund 39, $8,303,725. Non-referendum Debt Service Fund 38, $4,376,041. Capital Expansion Fund 41, $8,500,000. Community Service Fund 80, $11,535,312 for a total levy of $308,009,893.
Second.
Any discussion? TJ?
Though I think there's a lot of good things in this budget, and I think the process has continually improved over the time, I will be voting against it, and I'd like to offer just a few of the reasons why. I'll start with the fact that over $3 million that was unspent, was allocated for teaching and learning last year and was unspent, is allocated this year from fund balance to go to infrastructure safety improvements that I think are excessive. Secondly, I think that this budget adds something along the lines of 5 or 6 administrators and a number of NUPs, non-union professionals that I'm not quite sure of, but more than I think we should be adding. At the same time, our core work in teaching and as reflected in the class size report is not getting the emphasis I think it should. We have and I think that even within that report, that there are resources that are being used in a way that I don't think is their best way. There's about 100 sections that are under the minimums that we establish, and our minimums are pretty small. And I look here and I see that there are 55 middle school and high school English sections that are between 31 and 39 students. And those are large, large classes. And I think that we need to do better. I think we need to do better in putting our resources in the classroom and not in new administrators and not in new door locks. So I will be voting against it.
Okay. Nikki?
I will also be joining my colleague TJ Mertz in voting against it. My issue is, one, special ed budget. When we vote 7-0 for something to be added in, I think it needs, the money should be used, and I thought that was bothersome. Number two, I would like less NUPs, more union professionals. I want more teachers of color. I want more teachers, period. I want people in the classroom. I want education in the classroom. I think we do a lot on consultants. I think we do a lot on other issues that we spend a lot of money on. And I think we need to work and hire locally in our own backyard. So for those reasons, I'm voting no.
Yeah, Kate?
So I maybe just wanted to reinforce a couple of the points that I raised in the review of the operations work group, but I mean, honestly, mostly I wanted to thank the community. We couldn't have done this budget without the support of the referendum that was passed several years ago. I'm personally as grateful, I guess, as a parent of kids in Madison that our community is willing to continually invest in our schools. $300 million is a lot of money. Our taxpayers are supporting that, and so I mostly just wanted to say thank you. You know, obviously strong growth in Madison is supporting this budget as well and has reduced the impact on our taxpayers. And so again, you know, there's a lot of people working hard to grow Madison, and there's a good circle there that's supporting our schools as well. So mostly wanted to say thank you. I'm I guess proud of this budget. I think we're making strong moves, particularly in K-5 on class size. Granted, I think there's some ways to go in some of the other grade levels, and made some really strong commitments in terms of staff compensation this year, which I'm again grateful to be able to do. We're only as good as the staff in our schools, and we need to continue to work hard to retain them. So I'm grateful for all of that, and we'll be supporting the budget. We've got a lot of work to do next year going into the budget, and we'll be starting next month. Mm-hmm. So it's a never-ending cycle, but I'm glad to be able to do this today.
Yeah, Nikki, I'd like to give other board members a chance. Sure. And Jen, I'd like to ask if you would like to comment at all about some of either TJ's or Nikki's issues with regards to investment in the classroom.
You know, this is a very late date to be having this discussion. At this point, the board will vote the way it votes, but this is the strongest budget that we have forwarded to the board in my time in Madison. Not only did we build in the class size guidance that this board approved last year, significant investment in our staff, which we agreed upon last June. But we did all that while making really important investments in our students, like the Early College STEM Academy that is starting at Madison College, but multiple other investments that are critical to our student success. So I'm very proud of it, yeah, just look forward to moving on with the work and getting on to the next budget.
Next budget's going to start in 2 weeks. So
that's right.
Yeah, I would say, along with Kate, I think that there's a lot in this budget, and I think as we can feel with regards to class sizes that there's still more work, particularly at the high school level, and some of those class sizes are ones that we want to see come down. But I will say, whenever you compare where we stand, particularly with any other district of our size, and even much lower ones, we can be really proud of the size of our class sizes, and I think it does reflect the Madison community's investment in schools and in our students. Gloria?
Yeah, I just want to add that I agree. I think that we should be very proud of this budget. I'm exceptionally proud of the focus on safety and security in our schools. None of, the class sizes, really important. But I think the learning environment of our kids is a priority, and focusing on safety and security. Spending those funds on infrastructure to update locks in our old schools is very important. So just wanted to state how important that is.
Great. Nikki?
Just wanted to state that I am appreciative of the work that was put in. Also appreciative of the funding of the COLA. My objection is on the special ed, not on our teachers.
Okay, any other further comment or discussion? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
That passes 5-2. The second motion with regards to the 2018-19 budget is as follows. I move that the Board of Education approve and adopt the 2018-19 fall original budget as presented in the materials for the October 29, 2018 regular meeting in the following amounts for all funds, including funds 10, 27, 30, 38, 41, 50, and 80. Total revenues net of interfund transfers would be $457,410,705. Total expenditures net of interfund transfers would be $463,405,498.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
That passes 5-2. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. And okay, so I move that the Board of Education adopt and approve all of the motions set forth in Section 10 of the electronic agenda prepared for the October 29, 2018 regular school board meeting, exactly as said motions are written. By voting affirmatively on this motion, a board member expresses his or her affirmative vote on each of the motions consolidated hereby, subject to any express separations that have been made by any member of the school board.
Mary,
I was just going to second.
So seconded by TJ. Okay, are there any separations?
So I may have to, it looks like 814, 819.
Okay, 814 and 8. Okay, any others?
I'd like to also pull 812 and 816, and before we vote, I'm going to vote in favor of it, but I just want to make a comment on 811, which is the ELL plan evaluation. So.
Okay. Okay, any other separations? Okay, so the separations for voting purposes are 812, 814, 816, and 819. TJ, as I understand it, 811 is just about a comment, not needed to be separated.
Just a comment, not to be separated.
Okay.
Save some time.
Okay, then we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Actually, let me make my comment before we...
Okay.
I mean, that's why I asked it. I just want to comment on the ELL plan evaluation and this item, and some of it echoes a more general comment, which is that it looks like, you know, Center for Applied Linguistics, the last time they did an evaluation for us, it was pretty good work. It was actually, parts of it were very, very good. And it looks like a good RFP. The general comment is that I think that when we have evaluations where the Board of Education is one of the end users of this evaluation, that the Board of Education should be involved in drafting the RFP. And I think that of all these evaluations we do. And I've said it before, and it's never happened. On this one in particular, there's 2 or 3 things that deal with staffing and transportation and budget and school organization, which may or may not be covered by the RFP. There are places which I think are very, very important to when we look at the impact of this on our schools. And I would have asked, had I been given the opportunity, I would have asked that these be explicitly included in the report, and there's a good chance they will be there. But we didn't request them specifically, so there is no obligation for the Center for Applied Linguistics to provide, to do an analysis on this, or to work with us to do it. And so I think that, again, if the board is the end user, the board should have some say in what the evaluation covers. And, but I'm voting in favor of it because we need to get head on this work, and Center for Applied Linguistics is a reputable organization.
Okay. Yeah, no, TJ, and I think that with, especially with just approving the cycle of evaluations that we just did, I think all board members should feel free to, knowing that those are coming up, or at any point ask that certain information be included in that RFP.
I think that before the RFPs go out, because once it's out, it's...
Okay,
Yeah,
James.
the only thing I would say about that, Mayor, is that if individual board members make a request, there's no guarantee that it will happen. It has to be all of us, or a majority of the board, making the request for it to be a directive. So I think as a board, we need to keep that in mind. If we all make requests from time to time, and if we really feel that what Mr. Mertz is saying, that we need to do it, then we need to do it as a board, if we want it to happen.
That makes
in my
sense.
view.
Yeah, and I think either the instruction, most of these are instruction work group evaluations. I think that's a perfect vehicle for bringing those issues because we know they're going to be done in a particular year, and I think that any of those additions could be incorporated into the agenda for the instruction work group and then discussed as a board.
We've talked a lot in the last 6-8 months about ways of working, and I think that that's a good way of working.
Okay. Okay, so then we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes 7-0. So going back to 812, TJ?
This is the HR system, and we were briefed slightly on it in the operations work group in the context of the budget. Looking at the memo, there were some kind of follow-up questions I had, if someone can be available to answer them.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Deirdre, would you join us on the stage? Oh, yeah, come on up. And Tina. If we can just give them a minute.
So for those that don't know, Tina is our infotech analyst who really played an instrumental role in getting us through this RFP process, and we really appreciate all of the work that she did to get us to this point. And so she's our subject matter expert as it relates to possibly the questions that you have, TJ.
I guess the first question is, at the end of 6 years, what do we have? And I mean that in terms of, at the end of 6 years, do we own anything? Or at the end of 6 years, do we just have the option of continuing to pay yearly fees with this company?
Yeah, so it's like any other system that we have, very specifically similar to Munis, and that we pay a licensing fee, right, to use the service. So it wouldn't be anything that we would necessarily purchase outright.
So we can anticipate approximately $300,000 or more in payments to Frontline Education, to Cornerstone, from now to perpetuity. Is that? I mean, I'm just asking. That's because you know, I understand when we say we purchase something, we're actually leasing, and we're not, and that's a different
That's right.
phrase. Can you walk through the rollout a little bit in terms of what kind of functionality will we have this year, next year, and the year after? It looks like it's a 3 year. It looks like some of the functions that we've been told we're desperate for, we're not going to have for 2 or 3 years. Is that, I mean, and maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit there, but if you can respond to that?
Yeah, sure.
I'm baiting you a little bit.
Yeah, actually, the two things that we need the most are being rolled out in the first year. So that, yeah, sure, sorry, I have a little voice too. So the first two things are being rolled out in the first year that we do need the most. So the first is the learning management system, and that actually is replacing our old PD catalog. And that was previously owned by the UW system, and they actually completely decommissioned that a year ago. And so we're trying to actually get back to where we were back in 2017 with that PD catalog. So that's in phase 1. The other thing that's in phase 1 is our applicant engagement system. So replacing the existing system that we have, which is 12 years old, and actually getting that off the ground at Human Resources. So that's phase 1. We're looking to get the PD catalog portion of learning management out by May of 2019, and then getting the applicant engagement system out in November, and we may even push that to October of 2019 to be fully functional on those 2 basic pieces. Then there's additional functionality that gets rolled out in subsequent years. The 3rd year, we're looking at really rolling out a whole performance management piece for non-teachers. Of course, teachers are in educator effectiveness, but we'll have everybody else in staff using the performance management piece, using career ladders in that system. We also have a lot of training that's going on outside of Human Resources and PLLD, which is happening in Student Services, which is happening in OMGE, and getting those all in one place so we have a cohesive spot for our staff to actually go in and do all of that training. So that'll be built out in years 2 and 3. So we'll have most of the things done by the end of the 3rd year of the cycle. So
2 things that, and I mean, I've got a couple more, and one is, you mentioned educator effectiveness. Does this interface with the educator effectiveness system with the, it's not schools, who are we using? That's not, with,
yeah. My Learning Plan.
My Learning Plan, thank you.
It's not a full interface in terms of being able to use either one of the systems simultaneously. What we are looking at doing is pulling out key pieces from MLP into Cornerstone so that both our principals and our other end users can actually be looking at all of their staff cohesively. And then if I am a teacher and I'm looking at all of my professional development, I can at least see those key pieces of Cornerstone, or key pieces of MLP in Cornerstone. So not a complete interface, but at least like those basics of, you know, this is was the end of year 1, this is what things look like, this is year 2, this is year 3.
Okay, 2 more questions.
Yeah.
And one of them is that I understand that the functions that you call, that you're prioritizing, the ones that are absolutely essential and essential to your work and the work of your department. One of the things that we've been told as the Board of Education is that a lot of the analytics that we've asked for in terms of our hiring, our applications, our things like that are undoable in the current system. And I guess that in that phase in, when will they be available? Because that's what we care about your work, but we care about our work too.
Yeah, that's a huge piece of what we're really excited about with this. So a couple things about that. There's actually 2 pieces that we get out of Cornerstone. So the one is actually having a bunch of data pulls to put in our current data dashboard so we can actually take that information that's sitting in Cornerstone around the skills and the development of our teachers, and then actually being able to even grab things from Infinite Campus, pulling additional tables from Munis, and actually getting all 3 of those systems to talk so we can have the business management, the human capital management, and the student pieces of the house all together. So that's the first thing. The second thing then is actually enhanced capabilities for reporting, both for leadership team as well as for the whole board, being able to do all of, you know, sort of the multi-year, you know, sort of analyses that we're talking about. So it has a full capability to do flexible report writing in there and not be reliant on SQL and doing other things where we maybe have very limited or 0 access to the database in the case of our current applicant system, and actually having a large number of people in our department have access to run that and develop their own reports and do that ad hoc reporting that we have a really difficult time doing because we have a lot of that sitting on spreadsheets and side systems, and it's very manual. So we're excited, and that is definitely one of the development pieces. When we go through, and I'm just kind of glancing at my timeline I've been developing here, and really when we start doing the prototype development, and we're looking at, you know, hopefully kicking that off already in November, that reporting piece is actually going to start going in right away with that prototype development, because obviously we need to be thinking about the things that we've been asked for and those ongoing reports that we need as we decide what we're actually tracking in the system, what we're not tracking now, so.
And then the last question is that, you know, we'll talk about educator effectiveness, but, you know, so it's not just us, but often organizations, in this case the state of Wisconsin, purchase a system for similar work, and it turns out to be the wrong purchase. And, you know, the best intentions and the best vetting, but it still turns out to be the wrong purchase. And so I guess that in the contract we are signing, are there any penalties if a year from now or 2 years from now we say that the Cornerstone isn't interfacing, it's not doing what we want? I mean, we can see it with, you know, with Oasis locally. We can see it. I mean, that there's places where it's just that this wasn't right for us. So, is there any penalty other than, or do we just discontinue the contract? You don't want to plan for bad outcomes, but.
And that's, I mean, it is a 6-year commitment. What I can say about it is that we do have flexibility in terms of when we are rolling things out with what we're seeing. And again, I'm not a contract expert, so we may need to even pull somebody else in to kind of finish this question. But when we were doing the planning of the timeline, we were very careful to say that if there's something that when we start on this process of actually doing that development, if we're seeing that it's not what we need, there's enough moving parts in there that we can say, this is not a piece that we're actually going to be paying for. And so that's part of the reason that we have the timeline staggered, because if there's, again, around performance management is really the piece that we're still developing internally, some of those things. And so if we develop our business processes and then we turn and look at that product and say, there's something that's coming up short here, then that would be something that would be lifted out.
And we wouldn't pay for that till it was ready to go in.
Correct. That's why we have it staggered, because we're building it out first and then we're making sure that we're paying for it in the year that we're actually developing and building it.
Yeah, and I think the only other thing that I would add to that is, as we've moved through this process, this was a full kind of central office process. Like, we had many stakeholders at the table, and it was really our intent to make sure that we were functioning in a more centralized way rather than what is just right for what we need, but also looking across, as Tina mentioned, student services, curriculum and instruction, all of those folks at the table giving input so that we are certain this is the vendor that we want to go with. So we were very intentional about including the entire team.
Thank you very much, and it's important work, and I'll be voting in favor and have high hopes. So,
James.
Yeah, you might have answered it, I may have just missed it. I think you referred to it as the applicant engagement part of the system. Now, is that the part of the system where you track applicants from application through hiring? Is that part of the system? And you said that would be up and running in 2019. Is that what I heard?
Yep, that's, sorry, getting closer. I feel like I'm eating the microphone. Yes, that is correct. So the applicant engagement part is everything from social media posting to all of our forward-facing. We'll have a couple of different forward-facing pages to accept applications, and then all of the engagement pieces and tracking and emails that go back and forth. Also our interview process and interview notes, internal notes that HR is keeping track of. All of that is part of that applicant engagement piece.
So at the end of the day, you're ready to talk about how many people applied for a job, who applied, who they were, and have that all broken down, so we know, we have to answer questions like certain groups aren't applying or certain groups are applying, and under and over representation, all those types of things.
Yeah, that's where that ad hoc reporting piece of it comes into play, and that'll be part of it that's online by November. That's what we're most excited about.
Me too.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, I will move that the Board of Education authorize the purchase of an integrated human capital management system from Cornerstone in the amount of $1,523,311 to be paid over the period of November 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2024, using the 2018 to 2020 24 district-wide enterprise technology budgets.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 7-0. Okay, Gloria, 814, renewal of the Metro Transit Master Agreement.
Yeah, just need to recuse myself due to my city role.
Okay, so I will move that the Board of Education approve entering into the renewal of the Metropolitan Transit Master Agreement for the period of December 31st, 2018 through December 31st, 2019 in the estimated amount of $650,000 with funding from the 2018-19 Transportation Operating Budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that passes 601. Okay. Then TJ, 2016. 816.
I meant to pull 823 and not 816, so I apologize.
Oh.
And it was my mistake. They're both
819
mental
was
health. They're both mental health related grants, and I pulled the wrong one.
Okay.
And it's too late. We already voted on the other one, so we all make mistakes. And I'll just let it go with that. It was going to pass without my vote anyway. So, and I apologize for having this do 1016.
No problem. We will, I will move that the Board of Education accept a grant in the amount of $75,000 to support the expansion of bounce back services.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 7-0. Okay, and then 819, Gloria?
Yes, need to recuse myself due to my city role.
Okay.
And I was going to pull this one if Gloria hadn't, so
Oh,
I would
okay, great.
like to ask some questions about it, if someone is available.
All right. Jay and Brian, they know who they are.
And while you're coming up here, I want to say that both 819 and 823, we've been talking a lot about the role of police in our school district. And both of these grants enhance the role of police in our district in places where I have some serious doubts of whether the police should be involved. And 823 includes a school safety grant that includes requirements that 300 to 400 of our staff be trained by the National Association of School Resource Officers. And I had intended to vote against that. I assume it would have passed without my vote, and I apologize for not having pulled that. The grant that I did pull, the 1019, is a partnership with the Madison Police Department in critical response around mental health and related issues of violence. And having sat through over a year of the work with the ERO committee, having listened to many people in our community and many people in our staff about the need for mental health work both within our district and wider in our community, but also understanding the roles and expertise of sworn law officers as opposed to educators. That this being the sworn law officers being the lead parties on this work is not something I'm comfortable with. That's my initial comment. I have some questions because the memo on this is very different. The memo the city received is very different than the memo that the district received. And the memo that the city received says that we would be hiring a full-time coordinator. We have allocated $55,000 in the memo we got, and I asked whether that was a full-time position and was told that it was not. And so why is the city being told that the district's going to hire a full-time coordinator and we are being told it's a part-time position?
So I'm fine taking this. Sorry. What I have in front of me is the abstract and the budget that was submitted with the grant, and that budget allocated $55,000 per year. And in here was allocated to be a full-time equivalent. In checking back with the authors of the grant, myself, Leah Esser, and a coordinator, an external consultant that assisted with this. We used funds from previous models to come up with that funding source of the 55, including the matching funds that are allocated in the budget spreadsheet in the grant paperwork, which it would fall short of a full-time staff member if it was using our grant.
The matching funds are also not mentioned in the memo we received. The city memo says that the district is obligated for $87,000 in matching funds.
So,
and we were not told that.
the 87,000 matching funds is time and effort reporting.
But that was not included. That was not included. I mean, you know, it's a budget obligation on our part, and we're the governing body, and it's normal. Every other time we've had a grant that it requires us to do matching work, we get that information. The memo that the city received also puts educational resource officers at the center of this work, or near the center of this work. We have a contract that's expiring. We are entering negotiations. Approving a grant that requires the presence of educational resource officers kind of weakens our hands in those negotiations. Does it not? I mean, so are we required to have educational resource officers according to this grant?
Not that I'm aware of.
The city, do you understand why the city memo says that we are?
I'm not aware of why the city memo would say that.
These are our partners, and I have to vote against it. It seems, I mean, if the city and the district are supposed to be partnering in this work that I'm not sure that the police should be involved in the first place, and then you're not coordinated enough to know what's in each other's memos, I worry.
Okay.
Could you guys just talk a little bit about the history here? What is the scope of services? Why? What do we think we're getting out of it? Just maybe share some of the background.
Sure. So there are different incidents that happen around our city, inside of school, outside of school, that impact our students and our students' family and our larger community. And much of this work is how do we partner and communicate to best support our youth. And specifically, the aim of this grant was to focus on students that may be at the center of some of these incidents. How do we bring a restorative edge to that? And how do we help re-enter students into our schools with support and ensuring that they have what they need as they re-enter school?
And so what's the, I mean, what, I guess, why would that be something that we couldn't do with our own staff? Or?
We do much of that work with our own staff, and oftentimes students are in other environments that they may not be our student for a short window of time, and we want to target how do we help better communicate during those times to be able to put together support as they return to our school.
I mean, I guess I have to agree that the timing is a little bit awkward in terms of we're thinking through a scope of services for the ERO contract, that if we're talking about any of the same resources.
So regardless if there was an ERO in the school, these youth connected to incidents in the community would also be connected to other agencies, other providers, totally. And this is to help coordinate that work, with or without EROs.
That's not what the city says.
And I can't comment on the city's memo. I was not an author of that.
Nikki.
One, I am concerned about two different memos saying two different things. I do believe our partners should be on the same page. But as a defense attorney, what I worry about is we're going to use the mental health cases of these individuals with law enforcement who don't necessarily have the best relationship with law enforcement to begin with. Why aren't we putting this money into counselors? Why aren't we applying for grants for counselors and teachers, not school resource officers who don't have the mental health training? I don't understand that. Therefore, I'll be voting no on this.
You guys, what would happen if we pulled this for now to get clarity on the city's memo, which I think appears to be causing this confusion? Is there any consequence?
I don't believe so.
Then why don't we just do that?
Okay. James.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the pulling of it, but let's make sure we find a place to have, you know, it's not that it should come back here and we're in the same place. We need to vet this thoroughly so everyone around the table knows what's going on. I really like to know more about the 2 memos. I'd like to see both of them.
Yep.
And so when we come to the table, you know, we're able to actually discuss this. And if we are matching funds at $87,000, which is not in this memo, just so we have all the information.
Yep, let's get clarity for everyone, and we'll return to it when the time is right.
And just want clarity on the full part-time issue too, because $55,000 is a low, with benefits is not a whole lot for a full-time person.
Okay, will do. So consider that pulled, and we'll return to it at a future date. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so that wraps up the consent agenda, and we move on to other reports to the board, and the first of that is the City of Madison Education Committee.
Unfortunately, we lack quorum again, and therefore we did not meet. Our next meeting is November 7th.
Okay, thank you, Nikki. Next is Student Senate. Ahmad was unable to attend today, so we will get his report next month at this, and the upcoming dates for Student Senate look to be November 7th and November 28th. So then on to the MSCR Advisory Committee.
Got canceled.
Okay. And Dean, the Education Resource Officer Ad Hoc Committee?
We didn't meet, and I believe there's some action taking to dissolve the board, the committee, because the work is done.
Yeah, thank you. And Gloria, the Student Behavior Ad Hoc Committee?
So our next meeting is scheduled for November 19th. Just an update, we heard from Glendale and Orchard Ridge Elementary Schools. We've heard from high schools, middle schools. Now we've heard from elementary schools. We will have our next meeting, we'll focus on our high schools. So it should be a really good meeting. We'll begin drafting the recommendations in December, hopefully to have recommendations to the board, probably in February or something like that. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Then we're on to other business, and the first item under other business is the board acceptance of the Educational Resource Officer's ad hoc report and recommendations. They appeared earlier in the month in October, and we had quite a thorough discussion from the committee and with board asking questions on that. So I will move that the Board of Education accept the report from the Educational Resource Officer ERO Ad Hoc Committee dated September 2018.
Second.
Mary, I'll be recusing myself on this vote.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Yeah, can we just make sure we're clear what it means to accept the report? It doesn't mean that we are accepting anything in the report. It just means that we are accepting the report. So I think it's important to state that point of clarification for everyone that may be listening. So again, we appreciate the work of the ad hoc group, a lot of good information in the report, and we feel good about accepting it. Now we'll be discussing the details of the report as we move forward and talking about exactly if there's anything in there we'd like to have as an action item.
Yeah, thank you, James. So any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes 601. The next item is the dissolution of the Educational Resource Officer Ad Hoc Committee. So I will move that the Board of Education dissolve the Educational Resource Officer ERO Ad Hoc Committee following the submission of its report dated September 2018 and the board's acceptance of that report.
Second.
Okay, TJ.
I'd just like to make a slight amendment to the motion, which is so that it reads, that the Board of Education dissolve the Education Resource Officer ERO Ad Hoc Committee and thank the community members for their service.
Second.
I think yeah. So
Okay.
That's it.
Great. So we are voting on the amendment. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes 601. And then we are back to the original amended motion. Then is all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes, no, that's 7, I'm sorry. 7-0. No, I don't think,
601.
yeah, I don't think Lori
601.
has to
I don't think I have to recuse myself.
recuse herself.
Okay,
So
so
it's
it's
7-0,
Yeah.
it was on 7-0 on both votes. Yep. The next, pardon?
700.
I-
She didn't recuse on that one. On
I
dissolving
don't,
the
it's just
committee, she did
dissolving
not.
the committee.
Oh, okay.
I don't,
Yeah.
not,
And thanking
Yeah.
them. And thanking them.
Yeah.
yes.
You can do that. Okay, then the next item on the agenda is Education for Work Plan. So I will move that the Board of Education approve the 2018-2023 MMSD Education for Employment Plan as set forth in the documents prepared for the October 31st, 2018 regular meeting and in accordance with Chapter PI 26 of the Wisconsin Administrative Code and Section 121.02, Sub 1, Sub M of the Wisconsin State Statutes.
Second.
Discussion. TJ.
Just very quick, I think. This is a plan. And there are a number of initiatives ongoing in the plan that Most Prominent Pathways, which is on the agenda next month, next week, that where it doesn't appear in the plan that it says, you know, in 5 years this is where we're going to be, et cetera, et cetera. But it is, we won't have to update it if we shift 45 degrees, 30 degrees. It's, DPI requires us to file it. We, the commitments are, these are of the nature of these are our intentions at this time. I just wanted to clarify that. Good. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 7-0. And the next item is the 2017-18 student graduate list. So I move that the Board of Education approve the list of graduates granted diplomas from the start date of 2017-18 school year through the start date of 2018-19 school year.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Okay, and we do not have any other old or new business for this meeting, and so I would move that we adjourn the meeting.
And I would second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 7-0. Thank you.